Hello and welcome to week 6 of English 112. This week you should be writing your argument synthesis paper. And I just wanted to take a few moments to make sure that you understood the assignment and some of the components that go into it. So first of all, the requirements for this essay is that it is another 1,500 word essay. You will use APA formatting in terms of how you format the paper with a title page, a reference page, running head, all those things that you've been using. Also use APA in-text citations. And in this essay, you're writing in response to the two essays that I gave you last week that actually are going to be referenced as three separate essays about students having freedom of speech. So you should have read those last week, should have posted in the discussion board for last week. Some of you did not do that, so you've skipped that step. So I am assuming that you have read those essays in preparation for the essay that's due at the end of the week. Same deal as I've done with the other essays. You may submit a rough draft to me to get some feedback before you submit that final draft on Friday. This is a 150-point essay, so it is worth more than essay 1 was worth. And just want to take a few moments to look at what you can do with that in terms of what you write. So since this is an argument essay and not an explanatory essay, you are taking a side. And so your thesis statement should clearly indicate which side you're taking on some of these questions. So if you refer to your syllabus, you have questions that can guide you. So should public school administrators and teachers have the right to prohibit vulgar and obscene language in classrooms? So you might look at that and say, no, they don't have the right because students don't shed their First Amendment rights at the school door. And so that could be an arguable thesis statement that you make to answer that question. What about in assemblies? Did the speech you read about violate the school's rule prohibiting obscene language? Was his language disruptive to the educational process? So basically, you're looking at these questions to see, does it meet the legal standard of violating someone's First Amendment right to speech? And so you're going to synthesize evidence from the sources that I gave you, plus you're going to get at least two sources from the virtual library. So that's your argument synthesis. When you're doing the reference list for the essays that I have provided you, remember I advocate that you use Purdue OWL. That's their online writing lab. Look for APA. If you're looking at the essays that I provide you, that's actually an article or a chapter in an edited book. So it gives you the example of how to do that. I'm included in the resources section on this page a reference list. And what I said about it's two essays, but we're going to list it as three separate entries because you have an essay that has an author, the obscene election speech. This is how you would cite that. And then in your parenthetical citation, it would be Hager 2008 and the page number. The section that comes in that chapter at the very beginning with the header, do students have freedom of speech? You can cite that as a separate source. And then the part that comes at the end, the censored high school newspaper, you can cite that as a separate source. And so that takes care of all three sections that I provided you with last week. Notice that these two sources don't have a named author. So in the parenthetical citation, you would have in parentheses, do students have freedom of speech, 2008, 780. And so those would be the identifying elements that you use in the parenthetical citation. So this is included for you in the resources section. Now, a reminder of how to find two additional print sources from the virtual library. If you just search University, not University of Cumberland's, Campbellsville University Library, and that will get you to Montgomery Library. And you will use your login to conduct a search. And once you get there, I recommend that you click on Advanced Search. Put in your search criteria. You remember you can drop that down and change it to title to narrow your search. You definitely want to make sure you've marked full text. You can also include peer-reviewed, so that's an authentic journal that has been reviewed by scholarly sources. So this is where you're going to gather 2 more sources. Remember that we talked about how to cite these sources. So if we just do a quick search here to find a source so I can demonstrate that to you, it's going to pull up a lot. So if I pull up that full text link and I come over here to the side, I find the one and I hover over it that says cite. And then I just want to scroll down to where it says APA. All I have to do is copy that, go back into my reference list, paste it, move it to the correct location so that it's alphabetized, add my hanging indent. Remember, put your cursor there, hit enter, and then tab, and adjust your spacing. And so that is a very handy resource that you have in the virtual library there to cite those sources. And then you just drop that in. And then, of course, in your parenthetical citation, it would be Dagley and Weiler 2017, and then give the page numbers. So fairly easy way to cite this. And I'm asking that you have at least 2 sources. You can have more if you need it. And if you're having trouble getting to the 1,500 word limit, then just add additional sources. So your source list will have, and if you make sure that if you're listing a source, that it has a corresponding parenthetical citation. You cannot list something on the reference page if you do not indeed reference it. Okay, so that's it for week 6. You'll be turning in your essay by the end of the week. I need that by midnight on the 17th. And then remember, as we're going forward, the last 2 weeks, you're going to select your own topic for a substantial argument research essay. It is worth 300 points. So next week, we'll talk about topic selection, and you really need to begin working on that next week as soon as you finish up essay number 3. Send me an email if you have any questions. I'll be glad to help you.